Good morning. You know what? It is not Motown Monday. It is Community Healing Network Monday.
Hey.
I'm Babz Rawls Ivy, and you're on Lovebabz Lovetalk. Today I've got Diane Turner Young and Enola Aird. You know these stalwarts of the community. And so we're talking about the Community Healing Network because they got a conference coming up. Hi, Enola. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Babz, how are you?
Like they're low because we got new
Thanks so
chairs, so
much.
now I got like look over. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
All right, now tell me about the Community Healing Network. Now, I know about the Community Healing Network, Enola, because you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yes.
And
yes.
y'all have been making some inroads in how we could support ourselves from a cultural standpoint.
It's basically about love, right, Babz? It's about
Yay!
self-love. It's about how we feel about ourselves and treat ourselves and how we have been conditioned, and the world has been conditioned over the last 600 years, to treat us less than we are entitled to be treated. We have a situation where for 600 years, Black people really have been on the, at least considered to be on the lower rungs of the hierarchy of humanity. And so this has led to a great deal of trouble. And we think that the time has come, it's well past time, for us to move in the direction of healing, because that dehumanization over the course of 600 years has created a lot of pain. It's created a lot of trouble for us. We think it's time for us to bring it to an end. And what we're doing here, it's not really a conference that we're launching. We're building a template. We're establishing a template for a world tour for healing. We've been unpacking it for the last 12 years.
600 years is a long time.
600 years is a long time, but I can guarantee you dismantling it, ending it is not going to take 600 years.
Okay.
Because we've got a lot of resources. We know a lot. We've learned a lot. And we've got wonderful people like Diane Turner at the head of the board of Community Healing Network and other wonderful board members who are really determined to build what we've been calling a global grassroots movement for the emotional emancipation of Black people across the African diaspora. So we started here 12 years ago in New Haven over at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. Our goal,
is that your church?
It is my church, yeah.
Because I know lots of people use that church and they're not members of that church.
I am a member of the church, and I have been a little delinquent lately. But
I'm not. Listen, I was trying to call you out.
I have been delinquent.
No, because you know there are a handful of churches that
was to respond to a call to really kind of establish a base for us to launch Community Healing Network. And the purpose was to really begin to address the trauma that we as people of African ancestry have been experiencing for multiple generations. And so it sounded like a really impossible job. But what we did was we entered into a partnership with the Association of Black Psychologists, whose work and reason for being has been for years the liberation of the African mind, et cetera. We went to them and we basically said, look, we want to build a movement that really involves the entire diaspora, that says certain things have happened to us psychologically as a result of this experience. There's an emotional toll that's been taken, and it continues to be taken. You know, each and every day there's these little slights, these little microaggressions. Well, they're not so little. There's just a lot of them, and they're like little tiny pinpricks that over time add up to big wounds.
Oh, yes.
And so we've got to deal with them. We've got to establish, and what we're trying to do is just build a worldwide movement that says, enough, we are not going to transmit this to our children anymore. We're moving forward. We're going to end it. And so we established with the Association of Black Psychologists a self-help that you. And basically what's happened is that with and what we're doing now is really stepping up our efforts to help our communities emotionally as we come under additional challenge in our psyches and our lives as Black people. I mean, 2018 was the year when doing anything while Black became ever more dangerous and deadly. And so these are continuing slights. We have to find a way to heal. Emotional emancipation circles are resonating with people across the world. And basically what we're doing with this tour that starts here on October 12, 13, and 14 is taking that emotional emancipation circle experience across the world to different cities. And we want to share the insights that we have, but also concrete skills. So the key thing that's going to happen on October, the weekend of October 12, 13, and 14 is a retreat for Black people who are responsible for Black children called Breathe, Baby, Breathe.
Ooh, I need that.
Breathe, baby, breathe.
Lord.
We're just inviting our people to come together, to breathe together, and to let our shoulders go down. This conversation about our history, to see our history in a new light, to understand that the situation that we're in is quite intentional, is not by accident. And so we can understand the situation and we can begin to respond to it in a better way. And more importantly, we will have an opportunity to be trained in emotional wellness skills that will help us to deal in a better way with all the challenges that we
So
find.
we're not just going to unpack this without any tools to sort of
it's tools
fold
for
things and put them away.
Tools for emotional wellness that we can take with us when we go, that we can teach other people, specifically our children, so that they have this new understanding of our history, but then how our history affects us and how our present is affecting us emotionally. And we'll also have a deeper understanding of how our emotions are affecting us spiritually. So physically. And so we'll be able in a moment to figure out, okay, what did that slight that I just experienced, what is it doing to me right now? How am I feeling about it? And what do I need to regulate to help myself feel better?
Short of killing people.
Well, but, it's interesting. The American Psychiatric
Are you
Association
suggesting we could kill people, Nola?
says that racism adversely affects its victims. They actually say this by undermining self-confidence, self-image, and optimal mental functioning on a regular basis. Where we're creating for ourselves a culture of emotional wellness, emotional healing. And we're using these tools, we're sharing these tools. And so, we start here in New Haven. We'll start small. If 3 people show up, we're going to do it. But we're going to build, as we did here from New Haven 12 years ago. We're going to continue to build.
I remember when it first got started.
Yeah.
And I found it quite intriguing. So, Ms. Turner, you are retired. Why are you on this board?
Julie, that is a great question.
Because, retired people, you done put your time in serving on all kinds of boards all over this town, doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Why are you working on this? You got to get closer to the mic.
I'm taking things off the list.
But
I continue to hear the messaging. I continue to hear this need, and particularly for me, I think it's generational, because it's an opportunity to try to get our kids to understand affected us, and what do we need to do, whether as providers or as grandparents and parents, to talk to our kids about it, so that they understand where some of the stress is coming from, not only for them but for us, and the kinds of tools we need in order to begin. And you say how we do it. I think we do it brick by brick, city by.
And to really raise awareness. I mean, everyone's aware now about the impact of trauma, and so
my sorrow.
And all we're doing is inspired by that work and the work of so many other people. Marcus Garvey, for example, who talked about the need for us to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Carter G. Woodson, who said, we've been miseducated. Yes, we have. And that miseducation really does cause us emotional and psychological harm. Steve Biko talks about the fact that the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And so we have to do the work to free our minds. We have to do the work and that will release us in fundamental ways from the trauma. And then obviously these skills, which we're so excited about the prospect, 2-day process, Saturday and Sunday. And we're asking people to come out on both those days because what they get, we can guarantee will be spiritually uplifting and something that they can take. Well, people have called it life-changing, and I think that it is. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. You begin to see things differently. Your mindset changes, and then you're kind of oriented toward the world in a different way. And what we're excited about is bringing a group of people together who are from the same city, who can then, kind of become a critical mass of people who can then spread these new insights and the new skills out into the community. So we'll be asking people, whatever you learn, share it with someone else, particularly a young person in your life, in terms of, what are the truths about Black people? We live in an environment where lies are just being told constantly. And that Black, there have been lies being told about Black people for 600 years, about our humanity, about our beauty, about our intelligence, about our capability and our worth. And so this Global Truth Tour is designed to...
Years ago, because, I know you. I've known you longer than 12 years. Yeah. I knew you with the Motherhood Project.
Hey,
when we both were raising babies. And now
I can point to a lot of, facts and data points. But my great-grandfather was a loyal follower of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And
because you are of Caribbean descent.
Of Caribbean descent, born in Panama, West Indian. To do this, I can only think that it's in my DNA at some level in terms of my great-grandfather's legacy to me. This idea, a deep, deep love of Black people and in other people. And so, there's this. I've always had this deep desire to do something about that. And it seemed to me that, Carter G. Woodson talked about the need intellectually for us to recognize our heritage, et cetera. But it seemed to me that there was this missing piece. You may know what to do intellectually, but emotionally you just can't do it. And I think for us, it's important that we do the emotional work so that we can do what is obviously intellectually the right thing to do. I think when you get this stuff off of your back, when we unburden ourselves of this, when we do the healing work, we're able to think more critically, more strategically about what the situation is that we're in and how to get out of it. But while we're in the vice grip of racism, that's the beauty of it, the diabolical beauty of it from their point of view. We won't ever be able to get out of it. So we've got to create the spaces where we can heal so that we can be at our very best as individuals and as a collective.
This is quite interesting. On past some of these are not even microaggressions now. These are just all out macroaggressions. And I thought we got, they're doing everything but burning crosses in the town square. Right. So I'm seeing that.
In some places that's happening.
And in some places that's happening. And then, the spaces that we thought were safe, sometimes our jobs, sometimes the places where we convene are becoming increasingly not safe for us. So, that's a lot. But at the same time, we are embracing Black is beautiful in a way that I haven't seen in a long time.
Yes.
Right? Do you feel that?
I do feel that. As I look around and I see what's going on with our hair, the different just absolutely creative, beautiful ways that our young people are showing us we can do things that we can do with our hair and things. There is a resurgence of pride in who we are. And I think that we need to recognize that happened in the 60s and the 70s. It didn't go deep enough, which is our argument. It's got to go deeper.
Okay.
We really have to be intentional about healing so that we can sustain it, so that we can sustain the Black is Beautiful moment.
Give me the website.
It's communityhealingnet.org. And people who want to sign up, and we hope you will, it's going to be really a beautiful event. You can go to our Facebook page and register there, Community Healing Network, as well as Eventbrite, Global Truth Campaign.
Is it free?
It is practically free.
I like that. It's practically
that we're asking for a minimum. We're asking for a suggested donation of $20.19, and I'll get to why in a moment. But if you give us $10, if you give us $5, come on in, and you can register that way on the Eventbrite. 2019 for us is very important, which is why we're doing this tour. When we started Community Healing Network, one of our goals was to engage a critical mass of Black people in this movement for emotional emancipation by 2019. It seems some of your elementary school book, 1619, 20-odd Africans come off the coast of Virginia. They used to say Jamestown. Now it's apparently Point Comfort. But the point is that 400 years for us has been this kind of target date. That we wanted to do this work of getting the word out to as many people as possible so that we could feel a buzz around emotional emancipation. And so that's what this tour is about. So we're going to be leaving from New Haven. We're going to go to Los Angeles. We're going to go to Portland. We're going to go to Baltimore, any number of places, fast or slow. It depends, because we are not just going to show up in the town. We have to spend time talking to the people there, making sure that we have a co-created tour, not one where we just swoop into town and do our thing and leave, but we're actually building infrastructure to have the work continue to go on. So we invite people on this journey toward emotional emancipation, but we're not going to leave them and then just go on and do something else. The goal is that they will then become part of our movement through our global online community that we're building as well. So 2019 will be in Virginia on August 20th, which is the actual anniversary. And our goal in Virginia is to say, this is actually where in the United States this idea of Black inferiority started. Thomas Jefferson was the author of this idea of Black inferiority, and he talked about it quite eloquently, and he actually detailed the various aspects of the inferiority of Black people. And so in Virginia law, it became encoded. In religion, it became a part of the sort of the Christianization of people of African ancestry and the justification of enslavement through religious means. And because it happened in Virginia and then was kind of exported out to other states, we're going to Virginia to, and I've called it an emotional emancipation uprising, but it's to challenge that idea. To, if that's where it began in the United States, this is where it ends. This is to really call it out, to really understand how these lies have operated to hurt people, the lies of Black inferiority and white superiority, how they've hurt our children, and how we want to really say that it has to end here, because 400 years is more than enough.
It's way more than enough. So who's with you, Enola? Like who's part of this? It's a
wonderful thing here in New Haven. We're collecting endorsers and sponsors. Greater New Haven NAACP, Dory Dumas is with us. We are grateful for her support. The Girlfriends, the New Haven chapter.
Well, of course.
And we invite many more people. Anybody who wants to come. Clifford Beer's Clinic is incredibly supported. Alice Forrester has been very, very helpful as a thought partner. Misa Akbar has been on our board, continues to be supportive, and we continue to rely on her for thought leadership and intellectual support. The Beloved Community, which is an organization, has been focusing on bringing the community together. And nationally, the Black Psychiatrists of America, the Association of Black Psychologists, of course, they've been our partners all along. The Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, and we're National Conference of Black Lawyers. So we're collecting. We will keep collecting these sponsors as we go along. For us, everything doesn't have to happen overnight. It's an evolving process. We'll be doing this through 2020 at least. So our goal is that, we will engage a critical mass of Black people between now and 2020. So we begin to have a different view of ourselves, a more perfect vision of ourselves by 2020.
Have you been to the African American Museum in D.C.?
I have.
How was that for you?
It was very moving. It was very moving. At the same
because
time,
that sounds like this fits right into that. That's how I felt when I went in there. Like it was the beginning and the end. It was the end and the beginning.
Right. And that's where we are. It's the end. It's coming to an end. I don't have any doubt of it. But James Baldwin says that people generally are trapped in history and history is trapped in them. And in a very particular way, we Black people are trapped in history. But we have decided that we're getting out and we're calling everybody, let's get out of here. Let's get out of this space of surviving. Let's get out of this mindset where the narrative has been written for us by other people, and let us write our own narrative. Let's rediscover who we are.
Like this.
Let's think about what is it that we lost, our ancestors lost, and what of it have we managed to preserve? Because there's a lot. There's a lot that we've managed to preserve. Our Ubuntu spirit, our spirit of, like my aunt, my kids will say, well, is she really our aunt, or is she really that is so quintessentially African. That's, and for our children, there is no question in my mind that we're going to do this.
So what would this, in your mind, what does it look like when we embrace this thinking and apply it to our everyday practical lives?
Right. Well, when you asked before what, one of the things that drew me to this is one of the really powerful stories that I remember is being in a nightclub years ago in the 1990s, way back when. There was a woman there named Dee Dee, and we knew her name because it was a really small nightclub and everyone was having a great time, and Dee Dee was particularly rambunctious, and she was really getting drunk, and she got drunker and drunker. And my friend Claudette and I went into the restroom, and we saw Dee Dee. She came out of the stall and she said, she didn't really pay. Pierced my heart. And I said to myself, how many Black people feel this way? So one of the things that would change is that our children would look in the mirror and love every single thing they see. Love it. That. Once you have that, you have everything. Right?
I think you're right.
Sense of being in possession of yourself and feeling good about it. So that's what from you to tell the truth about you, do you? And so we have a bunch of lies that our children need to have corrected. And so it's our job to do that. We can't send them to school and expect to have that happen.
Listen, I was in Nantucket last week, a couple of weekends ago, and on the ferry back, I was talking to a woman about marriage or weddings, and white woman, and she was going on and on about how ridiculous weddings are and how expensive they are. I said, well, in the African American community, it's a little different for us. I said, because we weren't allowed to be married. And do you know, she said, what do you mean you weren't allowed to be married? I said, well, enslaved people weren't allowed to be married. She's like, slaves didn't get married? And I said, yeah. And she was so shocked, and I was shocked that she was shocked, because I was like, what have you learned?
We just don't know. We don't know the truth. No one knows the truth of what really happened. And there's a lot of new scholarship helping us to understand just how horrible it was and how amazing we are, how amazing our ancestors were that they survived it. And so we need to reconnect our children with that.
Because I think we've been dismissive of those 400 years.
Oh, yes.
We've allowed people to sort of dismiss it and make it seem like it was nothing.
Right.
But listen, 400 years of what I got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah.
I understand it. But I couldn't see 12 years a slave.
But
I couldn't do it.
It was 12. It's actually 600 years, because when you think about the Portuguese starting in Africa in the 1400s, before that, there were incredible stories about the wealth of Africa, the wealth of Africans, right? All of that history has been erased. Mansa Musa doesn't exist. still believed to be the richest man who ever existed in the world. But he's been erased from our history. So we have to go back and recover that, not in some sentimental way, but we just need to know that the truth is the truth.
Yeah,
right?
in a very scholarly and intellectual way. Because I think that's the piece that's missing too.
Well, Skip Gates has done a wonderful job of going back and talking about the great empires of Africa. And that's not made up stuff. It's real stuff. It's just that it's been kept from our view. And this other notion of Africa as a brutal, that rich culture was disrupted, that heritage was disrupted. And so bad things have happened. Bad things have happened to people in the diaspora. Bad things have happened to Africa. When we look at the fact that Nigeria has now become the poorest nation on the face of the earth. Why? How rich it is, right? But so bad things have happened, but we need to tell that truth as well. And so we are embarking on this global truth-telling tour so that our children will know the truth. They will know the truth of their heritage, their history, and their worth. And so our goal is to raise a generation on truth. Our tagline is defy the lie and embrace the truth. We want our children to join us in defying the lie and embracing the truth, defying the lie of Black inferiority and embracing the truth of Black humanity. Because bottom line, this whole thing has been about dehumanizing Black people, treating them and regarding us as less than.
Yeah.
All for the purpose of exploiting us, obviously, and exploiting Africa and getting rich. But that's coming to an end.
I was having a conversation over lunch yesterday with a good friend of mine who I adore, Jewish man, and he said, and we talk, and periodically we talk about race, and he said, well, education for Black people has been the great equalizer. And I said, there is some truth to that, but when I look at mortality rates of women across the economic strata of educated women and non-educated women, I have to say, no, that is not true.
There's something weird going on.
And I said, and then there's this whole notion of Black folks not feeling pain and they're not hearing us and they're not. And he just was like, what? I said, because you don't know anything about this. That's why.
Serena Williams.
I mean, she saved her own life. I mean, she literally,
and thank God she
and
did.
She's rich.
She's
right?
rich and she's famous and she's well regarded. And this woman almost died. They did not believe her.
Yeah.
Because Black people are not to be believed.
Yeah. On any level, in any circumstance, whether it's our health, whether it's crime, whether it's whatever it is, we are never to be believed.
Yeah, this is a terrible virus. It is deadly. And it just surrounds us, and we have to be it. Only we can free ourselves of it. The other people who are benefiting from it, they're just not going to wake up one day and say, "Hey, you know what? This is really something bad that's been happening to these Black people. We're going to fix it." No.
Well, I think you've done a great job of summarizing why these conversations are so important for so many people in our community to hear. This history, and less than that, will not only cover this re-education, but it also will provide a breakfast and a lunch for people will come out and become involved.
And what day is it?
Saturday and Sunday, October 13 and 14. Diane is right. It's going to be a lovely event. One of the things that we are big on is treating ourselves and each other well. And so this will be a time of refreshment. It'll be a time of inspiration, and it'll be a time of empowerment. Those are the words that we're trying to focus on as we get ready for these 2 days.
But there'll be laughter as well.
Oh,
so we'll have some fun.
Black people
can't outdo Black people for fun.
No, without fun.
Exactly. That's a must. So it's there. So don't think it's just going to be this heavy conversation without a combination of things.
Yeah, it will be, because it doesn't matter where we are. I've been to France, as Ghana has one of the highest skin lightening rates in the world.
Yeah.
We know that the science is there, but they're falling for it because lightness is so important. It's sad.
That is sad, but we're gonna combat that. So
absolutely.
So unpack the day for Give me a little taste of what the day will look like. Day one.
Let me say that Dr. Cheryl Tawede Grills, who some people in this community have met, but will meet for that event. The day starts with our meeting in circle. So it's not going to be sitting in, like an auditorium or anything. We're probably going to be in the gym where there'll be a huge circle of how many people we have, 50, 20, 30, whatever. And we will have the tables arranged in ways that there'll be small group circles as part of this larger circle. And we will come together initially in some kind of recognition of our culture, of our African culture, our Africanness. And so there'll be music. That's essential. There'll be music the minute you walk in the door.
We are musical people.
We are musical people. We have to have stuff going on that's lifting our spirits.
Yeah.
And people who've been thinking about this and talking about this for generations. As I said, Marcus Garvey healers all over the world who are prepared and ready and able to bring us back together again. And that's really that's the image that we're trying to invoke as we walk through these different communities is, that for whatever amount you pay, you will have breakfast and you will have lunch. And we will have a lot of just interesting things where we realize that we are connected, that the energy exercise where we realize that there's energy going between the two of us, and that when we're in a circle together, if one person breaks the chain, the energy stops. And that's a very powerful demonstration of the strength that we have when
that seems to be very pervasive.
Yeah. So one of the things that we work on is how do we trust one another? How do we begin to do that? And how do we make that commitment